Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paulini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Hey guys, so yeah, streaming out of bed today, but don't worry, I know that Mario has a lot of energy and he probably has the energy not only for the two of us, but also for like 5 tennis fans. Today will be mostly a Jakub Mensik appreciation ATP Weekly. Obviously, he was the guy who won the ATP 1000, the second ATP 1000 title of the season in Miami. His first ATP Tour title as well, which is somewhat rare. I know that Mario posted some stats about that on Twitter. And yeah, just in general, I mean, I know that this was a player that we were expecting big things from this year, but it's not like in the last few weeks, nothing was really like telling us that now is going to be the time.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was thinking about it as well in the past days, meaning that, he's always been a big prospect and we knew it, and we've seen something about him in the past months telling us, yeah, this guy is going to do big things because of of how his game was well developed, even and not just these 2 weeks, but even before. In the past months, we've seen big improvements, and overall a game that we knew that it could have been incredibly dangerous in big tournaments as well. But in this particular moment, things were not going that well, meaning that there were a lot of ups and downs, a few matches that where he could have played better, a few losses that maybe I'm not going to say that we wasn't expecting those losses because they were part of the progress, his growth process. But maybe these, ups and downs of the past few weeks weren't really telling us, okay, this guy is going to win the Masters 1000 now. And this has been also a fun thing of his rise in Miami. As we know, he was also kind of about to pull out of the tournament. So this kind of confirms our feeling before the tournament that it was tough to expect him winning the whole event, despite us knowing his talent and the things he could have done in the future. And it's been great. It's been also a fortnight where he has been incredibly clutch. 7 tiebreaks out of 11 sets played, and 7 tiebreaks won as well. And 3 top 10 players beaten. Draper coming off that Indian Wells title, and that was already a very good performance. But maybe in that moment you are still not incredibly moved, meaning that Mensik already proven to be able to beat the top guys, and Draper maybe after winning the 1000 in Indian Wells. But then he, after that win, it's been just every day better things coming. And especially of course the last 2 matches, the semi-final and the final against Fritz and against Djokovic, who played 2, I would say, good matches. But Mensik, just fantastic serving performances, and the ability to stay in the rally and to not let these top players actually live through his mistakes, his errors, and just incredibly tough to beat in any situation of the match. There's been in the last two matches, there's just been that moment after winning the first set against Fritz, where that break he conceded right after that first set, then he kind of costed the second set. But otherwise, it's been just incredible from every aspect. And now, well, he he becomes, of course, a big name as well, because once you win the Masters 1000 tournament and you are so young, of course, you start attracting all the eyes to yourself, and rightfully so. So we'll see, of course, in the coming weeks. Obviously, we have to expect losses and everything, because that's what happens to every player, especially to the young ones. But I think this week is, of course, a fantastic testament that we all were right when we were watching this guy in the past and seeing a real talent out there.
Yeah, indeed, the story that you mentioned, and also Matthew is highlighting, that was quite a surprise. I feel like the tennis world collectively forgot that his first round match was actually against Bautista Agut rather than Draper. I saw so many people just like tweeting that he was, a few hours before the match against Draper, he was almost withdrawing. But the first match was, of course, actually Bautista Agut, which honestly feels like it's, forgotten by now, because it was 3 sets and it kind of just wasn't at the standard of the rest of the week. But after that, of course, we saw the performance against Draper. Pretty funny as well that Jack was able to win Indian Wells and then loses to the eventual champion, which of course was a bit unexpected at the time. Speaking of the serve, I mean, it's so easy to just kind of focus on it. He's always had that. Obviously, he's always been like tall, at least, since I first watched him play, maybe like 2012, 22 Australian Open Juniors. He always had like the Hurkacz physicality. So for his age, the serving was fantastic, but I do think it took a step up. Perhaps around the next gen finals, there was such a horrible event for him. He put a lot of pressure on himself, but there you had these like amazing 20 plus aces performances against Tien, against Fonseca, where you could feel that like this is literally what's keeping him in it. Matthew, Ghosty, by the way, hello, I haven't seen you in quite a while. Matthew is also mentioning the baseline skills of Mensik. Indeed, I mean, I think in the quicker conditions in Miami, his forehand, he was like very keen to hit it big, net rush, and kind of like avoid all the issues that potentially can be there for Jakub in terms of his let's say deficiencies technically on that side. So I think he avoided that extremely well with that very positive attitude. And actually, yeah, as a baseliner, I think I've always kind of rated him. In the juniors, he used to have like a very Hurkacz-ish play style, then just kind of developing the weapons. And I think now we can see that he's kind of trying to stay away from that tall counter puncher mold that Zverev, Hurkacz, Medvedev are like prime representatives of. And let's talk about that mental performance as well.
That's true, but he still gives me those feelings, but in the positive way of that, meaning that, of course, those guys became top players, of course, for a reason. So I feel like he, in this tournament, and also in the past, he gave me, the vibes of trying to keep the positives of that game style, but of course trying to add a little bit more of of aggression, and there's something that reminds me those sort of players in him. But yeah, as you mentioned, of course, we all know that from this to be able to winning the big tournament, you need to, of course, unleash the weapons. Even, I don't know, Medvedev, when he's won the big titles and his Grand Slam final performance, for example, against Djokovic, it was not just about counter punching and defense, but serving very well and using the weapons. So what impressed me the most about him is that he tried to, he kind of combines those play style. At least in Miami, he's shown the best, in my opinion, of this idea that I got about him. And I think it's also a very sustainable game style. So I'm very optimistic.
Yeah, Ghost is asking whether this win outshines Ala's run. I guess we can look at it many different ways. I mean,
yeah, it's very different.
Like a bigger prospect, I think, but is the story similar? Like, definitely was like more. He was more in the mix than Alex Ayala was before this event. So I guess depends how you look at it. Yeah, Zverev Light, I think, is much closer to Hurkacz. I've always really thought that the defensive footwork and kind of the same way in which they extend points, like they're not really countering the ball, they're just like sliding into it and picking it up, and it's like extending the point to, basically you're not really gonna like regain advantage in the point most of the time like
Let's say that
but
it's probably a more Sinner-like counter punch. Of course, Sinner has not counter punching his main thing in his play style, but I feel like that Sinner had that quality jump that we saw when he became also a master of counter punching and of course not losing his way in the rallies. And I think it's a bit more similar the way Mensik tries to do this rather than Zverev and Urkac. That's my feeling.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, I agree with that. That like, even though it's not a cornerstone of Sinner's game, it seems like at the top, really, like everybody has weapons, and it's actually very often like your return skills, your defensive skills that eventually take your game to the very top because you have everything in it. And yeah, in terms of Menchik, I do always kind of thought he was like, yeah, a more aggressive Hurkacz, and I wouldn't call him a Hurkacz light. I would say he's an improved version of that game. Just Hurkacz with proper weapons off the ground in many ways. And that's an exciting prospect because if Hubert Hurkacz had proper weapons off the ground, he'd be a better player. Yeah, the mental performance as well. Let's talk about that because Menchik, well, I can't say he. Okay, yeah, actually, I can say this. Like, he had a reputation for not being too clean in some of these big matches. I mean, look at his most recent big events. Davidovich Fokina in Australia, that was such a major choke, and so many people obviously just like jump to conclusion after that and say that he's not him, he will never have it or whatever, which is just insane. But I mean, that's a topic for another day. Same at the US Open, really, when he was he of course defeated Australia Sim in a great performance, somewhat similar to Australia when he beat Ruud, and then he struggles with Schoolkate, loses to Borges from match points up. So he's not really a guy who was like stepping up in all of these big moments. And yet in the final against Novak here, like kind of the biggest moment you can possibly imagine, at least for the time being in his career, because you're playing your idol, you're playing the biggest match of your life. Obviously, just the fact that Novak is also going for some history and there's like so much pressure on both guys. Yeah, he actually like never pooped his pants, if you may.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, he's had some, let's say, mini history of, as you say, maybe um, not having been the most clutch player, but of course we say this forgetting, of course, about his age because I think it's also part of some normal immaturity that someone can have, and maybe at 18 and at 19, but he's also played some very good matches as well. Yeah, so just I think the normal ups and downs of the up and coming guy who has a big game, but of course still has to find a little bit of balance. So for example, the Australian Open, he beats Ruud, and even though it's a fantastic win also because he played a fantastic match against Casper at the Australian Open. And then, of course, there's also that match against Davidovich Fokina that you mentioned, and there are other examples like that. But even in the Challenger tournament, the week before the Miami Open, he had a match that he probably should have won in straight against Echeverry, and then he wins in 3, and then he loses against Zumor the round after that. So it's been, of course, some ups and downs, but of course not. This makes these 2 weeks surprising, of course, but I think that what we've seen before, it's really normal. And I wouldn't be even shocked if we see still something like this in the upcoming weeks, of course, because I don't think, that I still think that he is going through a process that will take him at the top of the game. I will really be surprised if he doesn't reach the most, the highest of the sport. But of course, it's not something that happens between 2 and 3 days. So even though, of course, many fans, many people tend to over criticize and overlook into some results, I still think that we have to expect, of course, that the growth process and the way this player keeps maturing will lead him at times, of course, to some maybe avoidable losses and some ups and downs. And I think it's normal and it's part of the game. Even the top players at their peak moments go through some ups and downs at some point. So I would say that we don't have to over criticize, of course, few results that maybe are a little bit down according to our expectations.
Yeah, a few people in the chat already mentioned Clay. I've seen some takes floating around on the internet as well about that. Honestly, to me, this is very, very like fake news. Really, I mean, we've watched a lot of Jakub Mensik play clay tennis, and yeah, he's been perfectly fine. Especially the conditions in Madrid last year. If it wasn't for the injury, which everybody was injured that tournament, and of course his injury happened against the one and only Felix Auger Aliassime. Uh, he played like half an hour and then retired. I think he's definitely going to be fine. What Matthew is saying, like, I don't know what his reasoning is, but in terms of the ATP Tour being just like such a big mess, and also in a positive way, but like from 5 to 30, more or less, the rankings, like they're all the same. Even you can go from 2 to 30, honestly, and just forget about basically everybody else but Sinner. And it seems like everybody there is basically at the same level. So if that is Matthew's reasoning, I very much agree with that. It's not like, you know, Menchik is presently just like so far ahead of his generation that he's going to be making these finals just every single week now. But certainly this is a massive step. And yeah, what we had last year from him on grass, obviously it wasn't perfect. That I can say is a surface that he hasn't mastered yet. Losing to like Oscarotte, for example, was
It
yeah,
rarely,
his knees are
it
shot.
rarely is very immediate, actually. Usually takes a bit of time, maybe a couple of
Yeah.
seasons to. But I disagree that he's missing the touch. Reading the comments, I kind of disagree with that.
Where can you see my hair? I don't think you can, Ghosty. You're just trying to scare me. Being a good baseliner only won't be good and won't be enough on clay. Menchik is missing the touch. I mean,
I know
I
that
don't know.
Fritz is not the biggest maybe mover when it comes to coming a net to the net, but many good drop shots as well. We've seen, you know, adding some variety as well. I don't think he's bad in that department.
I think the touch ghosty is supposed to be like, you know, hand skills and yeah,
Yeah,
exactly
exactly. Something
what you're
like
going for here. Yeah. Exactly that. Obviously, this is something we'll learn reasonably soon. I mean, next for Jakub Menchik will be some clay events and then some grass court events.
Zverev is
So
not a
he's going to
great, has
Mhm.
not great touch, and clay is probably his best surface. So, you know, I think that there are always a lot of combinations when it comes to being, you know, accustomed and able to play well on a surface. And I don't really see any reason for Mensik to not be able to play well on clay. And of course, if you ask me, is he winning French Open? I will tell you, well, that would surprise me. But you know, when it just comes to playing well on the surface, why not?
Yeah, I mean, just based on the performances I've watched from Menchik over the years on clay, I think obviously he's not going to be like a world beater. I don't expect him to, as Mario said, win Roland Garros. But you know, with time, I think he can definitely be a very good clay court player. Grass courts, I mean, there's no reason why his game would be bad other than maybe the fact that he won't have that much time on the forehand. But did he have a lot of time on the forehand here in Miami? No. So I think obviously with the kind of serve that he has, that's also a work in progress. And as Mario mentioned earlier, it's kind of tough to improve on grass courts with how little of that we get, basically. So it takes a while for the young players generally. Yeah, also pretty funnily, I mean, Jakub Menchik might have to play qualifying for Monte Carlo, but
Yeah, that's
it
true.
would be nice from the tournament to give him a wild card.
You know that I don't know. There are few players that have already booked one.
I mean, Gasquet has one.
Gasquet for sure. Then
I'm pretty sure Vacheron has to get one.
they have this reputation of giving the wildcards to the old players. I'm pretty sure if Wawrinka
No,
wants.
but it has to be one, right? I mean, it's like what, 4 in an ATP 1000 of this size of a draw.
Okay, it's probably 4. Okay.
Yeah,
Then it's
I think
possible.
Vacheron will get one. I think Gasquet will get one, and then one for
Well,
Menchik, one
it
for
probably will
Wawrinka.
depend. It probably will depend on. No, okay. Fonseca isn't playing. I would say which agent will pay the will want the
I
most.
mean, If he gets a wild card, he could play.
We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I do think they should give him that. When will Mensik's first match be? Will it be next Tuesday? I mean, first of all, this is going to be a question of whether he is actually in the qualifying for Monte Carlo or not. Because if he is in the qualifying, then I think it's going to be Saturday, right? Can
Saturday.
Fonseca get a wild card? I mean, anybody can get a wild card. They can give me a wild card. Seems like Joao wants to start with Madrid, but I'm sure if they offer him one, he would reconsider at least, or I don't know. But obviously, starting with Madrid isn't bad either. Will Djokovic be in Monte Carlo? He is on the entry list. That's what we can tell you. Is there anybody missing really? Probably not so much. Yeah, obviously besides Sinner, I'm not.
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
not mentioning that.
No, I mean there are 2 American players not going, which are Paul.
Tommy Paul
and another one for sure, Mikkelsen probably. No, he's there. They are 2.
I don't actually see Mikkelsen on the list, so I think.
Yeah, okay, so it's him. Yeah, it's him.
Yeah. So as usual, even though this happy Ramadan, thank you, Nurlan. I'm not celebrating, to be honest. Yeah. So in terms of Monte Carlo, of course, this is the one non-mandatory ATP 1000. So actually, we kind of learn something when they introduce this out, because for all the others, they're just in automatically and they have to pull out. Here we know that the Americans, 2 of the Americans won't show up, but that's not much. And Fonseca, I guess, is also a big name that's missing.
Yeah, there
even though
there is
he would need to be in
Tiafoe.
qualies.
He won't be. He wasn't there last year. Shelton
I think
as well.
Shelton wasn't there last year either, right?
Yeah, last year
but
was
he's
the
not.
opposite.
He's not playing Houston now. Shelton is not playing Houston.
Paul was in the entry list last year, but he injured himself, so he didn't go. And this year he gave up.
Well, the other man, first time I've ever seen that in a bad setting, says Ozan. I mean, yeah, there was a brilliant stream with me and John from Portugal, I think, when we were both in bed in our hotel room. Not the same bed. We had 2 different beds, but I think it was one of our best for sure. Let's talk about the man that is also on the screen right now. So Novak Djokovic. Yeah, I mean, 100th title. He clearly has this as a big goal for himself right now. So what are some of the reasons why he didn't get it done?
Because for me, this tournament for him is just been, he's been a confirmation of what I know about him, meaning that he's a player who can still play at a very, very high level. But right now, of course, he's more vulnerable when it comes to facing, in my opinion, those guys who have the courage and to unleash the weapons and to actually go toe to toe with him. He's had a very good tournament, but it's been also I can't deny that there's also been some very positive matchups against also player. I don't know, Dimitrov. I was not really expecting Dimitrov, for example, in the semifinal to be a problem for Djokovic, both considering the history they had and also considering Dimitrov's, of course, problems after that quarterfinal against Cerundolo. And then, I mean, for example, Musetti, that was a great performance, but Musetti is not really a player that in these conditions can create troubles to Djokovic. So I don't know, for me, it's always the same right now, meaning that he's still a guy with a guy. I mean, now he is almost 38, but somebody who can play tennis incredibly well, and with his his quality, his ball timing, also his fantastic serve right now, his great percentages on serve, and just his more kind of aggressive mentality. He can still beat many guys on tour, but of course he is still more vulnerable. And when it comes to facing somebody like last year he's been, for example, a couple times Sinner or Mensik this year. When Mensik is in this mode like he is in this fortnight, meaning that serving so well and being so solid, so not really letting Novak's aggression to hurt him. And then it can become more and more difficult for Novak, and that's been, of course, the main reason why he hasn't been getting that many big titles anymore.
Yeah, I do think his draw, especially the start of it, was quite fortunate. You know, Hijikata, Ugo Carabelli. I mean, if he's losing to these players on hard courts, I think
Yeah,
that would be quite disastrous. But after that, he did pick himself up. His form was pretty good, as you said. The serving was excellent. Matthew is also bringing a very fair point, which I think we've been like circulating around the entire
yeah,
season. That the returning has been more and more an issue for Novak against guys like that, where in the past, like you couldn't really beat him with linear power like that. And just this event, I guess it doesn't really change much. Like obviously the slams are still the most important, and the moment he is still able to like, well, when he's still able to peak for the slams, which he did in Australia, even though he had to retire in the semis, I still have to say that like, well, if he motivates himself, if he like really is hungry for something, he might still get it done. You know, he's a superhuman. Why not? So I can't quite like that's the one thing the win over Alcaraz in Australia, also the wins over Mahac Lehechka, how clean they were. Like that's the one thing that is really like stopping me from going for any big takes here. Did Djokovic look very tired, old? You might say in the final, yeah, absolutely. The returning is becoming more and more of an issue, and just like thinking about it, you know, we've been mentioning that like Alcaraz, Sinner, best of five play. He probably needs to avoid them in order to win slams, or at least not play both of them. Well, there's just more and more guys emerging where I'm just
yeah,
not really sure if he'd be able to beat them. Maybe Clay, okay. I guess on Clay against Mensik, he'll be fine, probably. Draper, not sure. But then you throw him in onto the grass, and like, am I perfectly clear that Novak is beating guys like that? Yeah, not sure. And I guess that's basically what the situation is right now. Like the window is sort of closing because more and more guys are emerging who
yeah,
will be tough to beat.
yeah. Exactly. I think it's the only like the only reasonable thing to say, meaning that he's still somebody who at almost 38 years old is able to reach 1000 finals, not only the year, it was also Shanghai last year. So he's still able to to do great things and showing very good performances. Of course, as we mentioned, he's getting a bit more vulnerable, and this is of course what's right now stopping him to get over that finish line. It may be, of course, an injury like at the Australian Open, or as you say, the guys who are rising and coming up. And there's always been guys rising and coming up, but Novak was younger, and so he kind of had the time to to adjust to their games and to raise his level. Right now it's looking more and more difficult, of course, because of some natural reasons. So still somebody able to play incredible tennis, and somebody I would never really bet against. So meaning 100% he is losing. But of course the feeling is that that window is not really wide open right now as it has been for a few years in the past.
Yes. So there was also this question from Ghost. To be honest, would you have anticipated Mahac Lehechka or Mensik getting an M1000 first? So a title actually in one of these events. I'd say that like, as much as I love Thomas Mahac's game, he's probably never winning an ATP 1000 unless sort of like the situation we have on the tour right now is going to continue. Lehechka or Mensik, if we're thinking finals, I could have said Lehechka. If we're thinking title, we probably, I think, all would have said Mensik. He's just the guy with the highest ceiling there. But Lehechka, at least on paper, shouldn't be far off. It's just that, unfortunately, there are still setbacks which are kind of incomprehensible. Anyway, Grigor Dimitrov, let's talk about him. I mean, you mentioned his matchup against Novak. It's kind of like come back to bite him again. Of course, the Paris final, that was also another one, right, in recent years. And this was like a very unexpected chance for Grigor, who I think had
Yeah.
retired in like 3 of the last 4 matches he played before Miami. And just did very well to get to the semis. Unfortunately, that matchup is there again. I think maybe if he didn't spend this much time beating Cerundolo in the quarters, he probably could have gotten it done. But I mean, sorry, he probably could have like pushed it a bit closer, is what I was trying to say. So a very unexpected chance, but I guess with most players in the draw, at some point we had this feeling that like, oh, this is a brilliant opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, that epic against Cerundolo took almost all his energies out of him. But yeah, I mean, it could have been also expected a little bit, meaning that considering how the both guys were playing, I was kind of expecting a close match between the two. Grigor still played a very good fortnight overall, and saw a good result, which is kind of saving his ranking as well, keeping him inside the top 20. And I think, and just showing that he's still somebody who is around at the top of the tour. So I would say some very good matches that, and you can look at this tournament with looking at the positives, because if we consider how the season started for him, as you mentioned, all these retirements and things were not really looking good. And well, coming to Miami, I think this just keeps showing that he's still around, able to do some very good things on the tour.
Yeah, I like that question from Ozan, as I think I have a reasonable take. Let's see if it's similar to yours, Mario. Do you think Fran Cerundolo is capable of winning an ATP 1000, and if so, which surface will it be on?
I probably think, uh, actually he's, had these, let's say, quite deep runs, meaning quarterfinals on each surface. But well, still, maybe I think clay can be the best opportunity, because the competition is also maybe a little bit, um, at least in this particular moment on the tour, a little bit not as strong as on hard courts. For example, if he managed to find this level last year in Rome, uh, yeah, Zverev was playing very, very well in Rome last year, but there could have been a good opportunity, for example, for him. Indeed, last year in the semifinal, it was, there was an opportunity also for guys like Tabilo, Jari, and I consider Cerundolo, the way he's playing right now, even above this guy. So probably clay sounds the more reasonable, even though he has been able to have good runs even on hard courts.
Yeah, my opinion basically is that it will be one of the first 5 of the year. So
Yeah.
either one on the clay, or Indian Wells, or Miami, not Canada, Cincinnati, not Paris or Shanghai. And then also, when it comes to whether he will, I've made this call a few times on this show, and I'm going to keep repeating it now. Well, first of all, I remember the call of Hamad Medjedovic to make the top 10 at some point, but also Fran Cerundolo, an ATP 1000 winner and a top 10 player as well at some point of his career. And yeah, I think it's likely to be one of the first 5. Is it a little bit easier on clay courts for him? Maybe, but he's got an excellent record in Miami, and Indian Wells in many ways is basically clay. But yeah, that's obviously also someone who had a really good Miami event, making the quarterfinals and just showing once more that his consistency this season is something we just hadn't seen from him before at all. Yeah, someone that's kind of like forgotten, I feel like, in the grand scheme of things because of what Mensik and Draper did during this Sunshine Double is Arthur Fils. But
Yeah.
back-to-back quarterfinals. I mean, that's really good as well. He actually
Yeah,
never had
somebody
one above the
exactly.
500 level, right? So that's obviously massive too. Menchik was someone he smashed off the court at the next gen finals, even though he also didn't have a good event, similarly to the Czech. But of course, this time he wasn't able to get it done.
Yeah, it was a great month for him. Of course, both him and Cerundolo had this thing of reaching both quarterfinals. They were the only ones, but they didn't manage to get a step further in any of the two masters. But yeah, for Fields, something that just you can add in his growth process. He is now number 15. He ticked this box, of his first and now also second Masters quarterfinal. Yeah, we also tend to forget that he was not in the best possible conditions. In Miami, there was also that back was bothering him a little bit. Great win over Zverev, especially because, after Zverev won the first set, and he was looking like struggling a bit physically. It was very, very good to pull that win off. And yeah, losing against Mensik in this tournament, it happened to other very, very good players. I would just say that probably he will have a bit more regrets for Indian Wells because of that match against Medvedev. It was really close. He could have won that one, and then you never know, because there was Rune. It was possible to imagine something good for him. We will never know at this point. But yeah, he should leave this March with the confidence that he knows he can create damage on the big tournaments. And now we are expecting something good on the clay, because clay is actually a surface where he's done incredible things since the beginning of his career. Of course, there's great things in Hamburg, but also winning a title, a 250 tournament on clay as well. So we'll see if he will be able to do something very good on the clay, but I think we can enter this swing with good expectations.
Yeah, perhaps if he was a little bit cleaner against Tiafoe, doesn't go so deep into that third set there. And then again, he got that day off due to the weather, so I guess that also helped him out. Nice for him to get at least one of these big wins here. Of course, Indian Wells, he lost to Medvedev in a tight match. This time he was able to defeat Zverev. So yeah, not much more to add, but certainly back-to-back quarterfinals. I mean, let's imagine that Yannick Sinner was playing Miami and he won it. Carlos Alcaraz was playing, he was playing Indian Wells, and let's imagine he won it. And then Arthur Fils probably would have been one of the main topics of conversation right now. But of course, Mensik and Draper kind of, overshadowed him with his achievements. Are we back on the Sebastian Korda hype train? I mean, so many injuries recently. He wasn't really able to get into the rhythm. But the performance against Tsitsipas, that was massive. And he also had some chances against Novak.
Yeah, that was good, but he should have won that second set, in my opinion, against Djokovic. To really get me on the hype train, no, kidding. He's just a very good player, very clean game. Of course, also this physical inconsistency is not helping him, because it's also important to get some consistency in playing and being able to sustain the level for week in, week out. But yeah, he's still a player. I wouldn't want him around me in the draws. If I'm a top seed and I see him potentially being my round 3 opponent, it's not good for me. He's somebody who, of course, also created upsets many times. Yeah, I probably thought in that second set that he could have done something more against Novak in that moment. But of course, Djokovic was playing and serving very, very well. So a good result. We have to hope that he doesn't get too many setbacks as it happened for him in these past years.
Yes. What? Does Korda have fangs? Yeah, I mean, you could definitely make the argument. It's not like with Mensik where people were just putting that, basically putting that etiquette, let's say, to his name, that label next to his name, and basically just thinking that because the guy choked a couple of times when he was 19, he had some issues with that. For Korda, the mental instability has been a thing for much longer. And we still know that his game, when it flows, when it's looking great, when he's in top shape, it really can be one of the most beautiful to watch on tour. But it's not always quite like that, obviously.
Yeah.
Probably not going to be watching the Carlos Netflix special Ozan unless maybe Vansh forces me to. I don't know. Mario excluding Sinner, who is your favorite Italian player? Is the question from Luman. Is it your practice partner, Andrea Pellegrino?
I think he could do way better than this. Also, him many injuries, and also the mental side of the game is not on time. But I really like watching Nardi striking the ball. So probably I'm going to say him. Let's hope he will, sort some things out in his game and, get a bit upper.
I think we have like two more stories to talk about from Miami, and then we'll also, of course, just briefly mention the clay season that is just beginning. But for now, well, Miami was also very much like Brazil Open, Joao Fonseca Open. So how did you kind of like
Uh,
feel about this atmosphere? I
all
know
of
a lot of
them were
people like
good
had
stories.
contrasting opinions.
The Fonseca, then Fonseca lost to Deminor, who actually did a great performance against Fonseca, and then Deminor lost to Berrettini, who was also a very good story of the tournament, first quarterfinal since 2021 at Masters tournaments. You're talking about the crowd,
Yeah, the
I'm very fine with
atmosphere,
that.
and
I'm very fine with that. I don't know. I have nothing to say. I actually watched the Deminor Fonseca match in replay. And I had seen a lot of stuff on the social media commenting this, and I was expecting way worse. Yeah, they are loud. They are supportive. Um, but I don't see anything. Anything bad in the atmosphere. In the end, we want also good atmosphere, which make these matches even more epic than just the tennis itself on the court. And so I don't know. I don't really have nothing else to say. I'm very okay with that.
yeah, obviously. I think that a few years ago I came to this conclusion that if it's a small court, my favorite atmosphere is just like, me, the two coaches, nobody else, and that's it. But if it's a big court, then that
Yes,
sort of
exactly.
atmosphere feels a little empty, and I just can't really like get into it. So yeah, and something like this here was definitely fantastic to see. Some very memorable moments, although there was of course a mess with that too. But like when they moved that match to Stadium Court against Umber, was it? I think it was against Umber. And Mensik and Draper were playing. They announced
Yeah.
it, and basically there was this like long delay because that was the court that Joao was supposed to come on later. And the Brazilian fans, just leaving the arena, en masse, they just basically caused a 10-15 minute delay, which was just insane to see, and definitely something
Yeah.
we'll remember from this edition of the Miami Open. Kind of like the Indian Wells Lance
Yeah,
David
that's
beat
true.
from
But
last
of
year.
course,
Like,
just talking about them during the match, I haven't seen any issue,
yeah.
So
And one more player to talk. Oh, actually, two more players. There are two players who, because you
while increasing ransomware.
That's not me, I think. I'm
no.
not sure. Yeah, I think it's the article
Yeah.
from that British whatever it is. Anyway, what I was gonna say is that we had this like little bit of an running joke with John Wright that like every single week we're wondering who is more depressing, so Tsitsipas or Medvedev. Tsitsipas is out of that conversation by now
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I mean, he won Dubai. He was fine at the Sunshine Double. He's entering the clay season with a lot of momentum. But this week, we can ask whose performance was more depressing. Was it Daniel Medvedev or Carlos Alcaraz?
Oh God. Probably Medvedev. I mean, because he really basically wasn't there. But yeah, probably Carlos. We have, of course, bigger expectations as of right now. I don't know, both. We can say both. They've both been disappointing, especially, Medvedev had a good tournament in Indian Wells, especially with that good win over Fields. We saw him celebrating, and even though he lost against Rune, we kind of probably thought, okay, maybe we have, this Daniil with uh, a bit more energy, a bit more, mm, even maybe motivation. I don't know. But yeah, Miami has been, of course, a very bad performance. He has also talked about some physical discomfort. Yeah, overall, a very bad performance against Munar, who is playing good this year for sure. But on a court like Miami, you wouldn't expect Medvedev to look in such big trouble, and the scoreline could have been even a bit harsher than what it has been. So, um, for me, I'm probably going to mention him. But yeah, Alcaraz, of course, has been also a disappointment, of course, because losing so early in this tournament, a tournament where he always had good performances, even last year, still reaching the quarterfinal, the semifinal the year before, only losing to a Sinner who put on a great performance in 23. And then, of course, we also analyze this looking at an Indian Wells that this year he hasn't won. So, it hasn't been the best sunshine double for him. And yeah, there's been something this year. Not everything has fallen into the right pieces for him at the big events. So we'll see. There's going to be, of course, a big clay season. He still hasn't won any match in Monte Carlo because there was 22 losing to Corda after winning Miami. Then I think he withdrew both in 23
Yeah, he
and
never played it
24.
again. He only has one
Yeah.
match in Monte Carlo.
So we'll see. Maybe losing this early in Miami. He's been on holiday, I see. Probably he'll feel motivated and hungry. But yeah, we are starting needing answers from him, even though he's still, of course, a fantastic player.
Yeah, gonna be quite interesting indeed, because he's never played Monte Carlo and just usually enters the clay season with a very different mindset, very different feelings about his game. Yeah, both losses were pretty shameful, I guess, for both guys. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Alcaraz looking like that Botic loss at the US Open, where he kind of just doesn't care and blasts the forehand, and there's not much that you can see in terms of like passion there. And Medvedev was definitely just like done with the match after like 5 games mentally. Again, of course, there's a lot of complaints about the balls and everything. But yeah, we are waiting for that tournament where he finds something back. And it's actually in Indian Wells where he was, pretty good. Like the chords that don't suit him, and on the ones that he's fine, not really.
Yeah,
Well,
I kind of think probably right now he has even a better mindset on the courts where he doesn't maybe which are not the best possible for his game, even though Indian Wells has had deep runs in all the past 3 editions. I don't know, maybe because in this new moment he's finding himself a bit struggling to catch up with the guys at the top. Probably, when he knows he has to fully, I don't know, probably when he goes to tournament where he has good memories from the past and the conditions, and he finds something that he doesn't like or is not finding his game, probably tends to I don't know, to have this way to let frustration out. I don't know. It's weird. And about Carlos, we kind of say always the same things. Of course, there are always, for me, the very bad thing is that after winning that first set against Goffin, you have to kill the match. He's kind of lacking this in matches, this kind of killer instinct. That
doesn't
he
have the
also
fangs, as Matthew called it earlier.
that he's shown a lot of times in the past, because he's
Yeah.
won some amazing tournaments and matches that he probably, I don't know, should have not won, I don't know, at some point. But in this particular moment, he's kind of, distracting himself a bit. But yeah, we'll wait for clay.
Yeah, and speaking of clay, by the way, Nurlan, it's very individual. It's just genetics, so I don't know if there's an answer to this question. Also, what does it mean losing your hair? Because I mean, you lose your hair every single day. Hopefully,
Damian,
it's
who
not gonna
won?
happen for me.
Who is the man who won the first clay court ATP main draw match of the 2025 season? Talking about spring, of course, not the Golden Swing.
Must be the first winner today in Bucharest, who was
Mariano Navone.
Oh, Navone, yeah, over there.
Who if
yeah.
not him?
I could remember the second one and the third one. Yeah, and it's the runner-up from Bucharest last year,
Yeah.
so definitely hoping for a bit of a run here too. And indeed, we have the clay season like fully basically there in terms of the ATP Tour. We've got 3 events: Bucharest, Marrakesh, and Houston. You already mentioned Bucharest, which indeed was the one that we kind of like got the earliest today. And yeah, I mean, Navone has to be one of the contenders. We've got the king of clay 250s, Sebastian Baez, in there too. Richard Gasquet just pulled off an incredible win against Botic van de Zandschulp in terms of, a comeback. And yeah, a bit of a choke there for sure. And I was very excited to see how Nishash Basavaredi adapts to the clay. And the answer is he didn't really do that too well.
Yeah, Gianu won actually his first ATP match outside of Davis Cup. He had 3 wins all on Davis Cup. Yeah, it's been an interesting day. Of course, the Monday is always kind of, you know, a tiring day, a day where we feel a bit tired from previous tournaments, and May draws didn't even really start a lot. Only the main court for the main draw in these tournaments. But yeah, we already had something, and it's a good week for us to look into who is going to be the player or the players who will gain a bit of momentum in this week, and who knows, maybe it'll cause some upsets in the upcoming clay big tournaments. We'll see.
Yeah, Marrakesh has Talon Hrikspor as the top seed.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anyone here that warrants a big mention. We've got Lorenzo Sonego as the second seed. Collignon beat Fonini today. Taha Badi had a pretty decent performance against Carballes Baena. But yeah, very, very clay heavy field, I'd say, in terms of, these guys like Munar. Of course, Berrettini, the defending champion, isn't playing.
Yeah, probably Bucharest is... Bucharest is also some interesting names, of course. There is, I don't know, Lajovic, Fucovic against Nardi. Fucovic is the defending champion of this tournament. Comesania Carapei, who will play their kind of first, let's say, full ATP clay season, meaning also the Masters 1000, at least Madrid and Rome, where, of course, the cutoff is 75 or something. So yeah, it's always interesting, and actually I kind of like even Houston, even if it's kind of a tournament that I don't really know where to place, meaning that I don't really consider it part of the clay season because it's very different. But yeah, it's always entertaining, at least for me, to especially because it filled with players. Some of them you wouldn't really expecting to love playing on this surface, so it's interesting to watch how they do, even though we know it's very different from the European clay. But yeah.
Yeah, Lau was very disappointed with Nishash. Indeed, I mean, he's got such a good drop shot, but if your only idea to win points is a drop shot, and you can't really hit through someone who's just, a solid grinder like Gianu, and then when he spreads the court, you're late to every ball and you're getting overwhelmed physically. It was a bit of a rough performance, but maybe there's some adjusting he can do there. He did have some good performances on clay in the juniors, but I think his last either professional or junior clay match would be Roland Garros 2022. So it's been a while. And yeah, Houston, as you mentioned, of course, the usual hard through red colored, but it's basically the green clay that we know from the Challenger Tour and the ITF events in the States. 15 players, I think, out of 28 in this draw are Americans. So, well, you kind of know that there is a pretty likely winning nation coming here, but maybe somebody can steal the show. Echeverry had a final, of course, in 2023 in Houston. Tiafoe is a former champion. I mean, Garin is a former champion, but right now maybe he doesn't seem like the most likely winner. I'm very excited to see how Colton Smith does. Jenson Brooksby saved the match point in the qualies, and that
I am full on the Colton Smith hype train.
Love it. I think that Colton, if he wasn't playing college, he'd be top 100 this year, and maybe he will still be top 100 this year if he, even with college. Tien against Mikkelsen is indeed today, Matthew. What do we expect from either on the clay?
Mikkelsen was unwatchable last year.
He beat Fritz in Geneva.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I remembering some performances like French Open. I think he made 3 games against Deminor. But overall, there are not, Mikkelsen is a guy who eats the the ball really well. I think probably movement is something that he can let him down a bit on the surface, because when it comes to ball striking, I think he has the ability to do well on the clay. Maybe he just has to probably shape up a little bit more um, his shots. But overall, somebody who hits so well the ball, he should be fine. But probably also, yeah, the movement. Uh, and probably also a bit of variation more. I don't know. It's tough.
Billie Jean Kong apparently would beat
Billie
Taylor
Jean
Fritz
Kong.
on clay. Um,
Well,
Kova
not
winning
really, by the
Houston.
way. Fritz has good results on clay.
Yeah. Kova winning Houston, by the way, he's never beaten a top 100 player on clay courts. Even Houston. I think Kokinakis last year was his best win, 104.
Yeah.
I remember watching that win win in Estoril with John looked at the screen a few times. Anyway, what I was going to say as well is that Lerner Tien, indeed, we have that matchup where they know each other so well. And as Lau mentions, the next gen finals and the semis, we already had that. They had similar coaches over the years. They practice with each other all the time. And yeah, I do think Mikkelsen's a little bit better in clay. Like if Lerner is going to have to like just inject pace all the time. I don't know. But then again, it's Houston. And on hard true, he can definitely be fine. I think Ledner played just one match on clay courts last year and he lost it. But that was just before his rib injury break. So I'm more concerned with how he's going to be like, I don't know, in Rome, for example, rather than Houston. In Houston, he can definitely be fine.
Yeah.
But it does seem like it's the best match today, yes, to watch in Houston. All right, I think that's more or less where we can finish it off. I am definitely like close to dying.
I also was a bit laughing at that.
First error? Yeah, I wasn't sure what you
Mikkelsen
were
first
laughing at.
error.
I think when John was watching him in Oeirash, he kind of liked the let's say the reactions of Alex Mikkelsen on the court than
yeah, I
the
remember.
gestures he
I remember. Yeah.
So probably that's why. But yeah, who did he lose to in Oeirash there? Was it like Enrique Rocha or something like that? No, that's not. That can't be right. I remember it was like
That can't be right.
Second loss. No, I mean it might be right. Denis Novak. Oh, that's even worse. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, indeed, it was Denis Novak. He beat Enrique Rocha in the first round, right? Yeah, I think he beat Enrique Rocha in the first round. So I wasn't completely off. When is the next live challenger event you will both attend in 2025? Mario, are you gonna have any more days in Barletta, or was it just?
No, yeah, I'll go
one?
today. Actually, they have played a few matches, but the weather was horrible, so I didn't even bother going. But I'll go other times. It's just less than half an hour driving from my home, so it really is easy for me to go. So I'll go for sure other times.
Yeah, mine will be Astoria, I think. Tianon Clay should be very interesting. His game should match the surface. I'm not sure that's true. I mean, that's kind of like the opposite of what he wants to have. But we'll see. I mean,
actually, clay, it's a great surface also for guys with big firepower from the baseline. Guys who lacks a bit of that. We've seen, for example, De Minaur struggling a lot on clay at the beginning of his career, especially because then right now he's getting good results there as well. It's not really easy. It's not like variation. And I think the weapons are probably even more important. The power weapons probably on clay than
I think
the
that's
very
very
quick
true.
surfaces.
And the Minor is a good comparison too, because like pure defense and variety isn't really like as effective for the most part, outside of like just classic drop shot. But like you need to have some powerful shots in order to get that drop shot in. I mean, basically, I think on clay you kind of have to. Well, guys like Tienor, the Minor, they rely on having some pop from the surface because their shots are so flat and aren't that like heavy in terms of the spin quality and power. But we'll see. Alex, of course, spent a lot of time training in Spain over the years and kind of got better as time went on. Did I know that Texas's GDP alone is bigger than Poland's? I think I've heard that before. Yeah.
What is GDP? Sorry. How big it is?
Jesus.
No.
I
don't know why I don't remember. Okay, I'll search by myself.
Yeah, you can search it. I don't remember the abbreviation, but it's basically like how much a certain region produces in terms of,
Okay.
money.
Yes, I got
You
it.
can have GDP per capita, so
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
per person. Yeah,
Okay.
gross
Yeah,
domestic product.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
got it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, cuts. Yeah, exactly. I'm very surprised that Nurlan retweeted me because I don't remember posting
Send me
anything.
Randrev.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's going to be it then. I'm going to go lie and rest while Mario is
should.
probably going to be so energized that he will now watch a lot of matches until the end of the day.
Probably.
Maybe including Vukic against Delian in Marrakesh. There's also all that Houston action that we mentioned. We of course didn't touch on Charleston, but who will touch on Charleston is Brenner and Nick, who are going to be talking about the WTA side of things in just about 10-15 minutes. So you guys can just like very smoothly switch to that stream in a moment. But yeah, for now, just thank you to everybody who showed up. And let's see each other in about 7 days.
Thank you. See you soon.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.